Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Joshua.
And I am Drew.
And we are finally getting around to that AMA where we answer the questions from the comments from forever ago. And we'll do that now.
Kabow!
All right, so we ended up with, a dozen or so questions, give or take. We're going to start off with a question from Noble Savage that we got later on in reference to our AMA. Here it is here. So Noble Savage said, 3 months later and still no answers to the questions asked. Geez, you're lazy as hell. Either that or you need to lay off the weed, man. There's two of us, but that's
Man.
Cool. Man. Which reminds me, I have a question for you, which that's good. We get a question out of it, so not all lost.
Who's your?
Well, I don't know, but we'll answer it anyway. Do you agree with the following statement? So this will be, you ready for this? You haven't seen this yet, right, Drew?
I haven't seen it.
All right, here we go. He asked, it's frickin' awesome that the lame-ass Looney Tune lefty propaganda spewing social justice-themed comic books are failing and being discontinued faster than you can say political correctness is actual fascism. So the question was, do you, or your, meaning you and me, Drew, do we agree with that statement? Do I need to repeat it for you?
No, I mean...
You get the gist?
Yeah. What's your problem, dude?
Right? It's very aggressive, right?
Yeah, he's very aggressive, and comics get canceled, all the time.
Right, of all sorts of comics.
Regardless of, fucking anything.
But yeah, things get canceled constantly.
Yeah.
When things don't sell well, they're going to stop. So that's fine. My opinion is I don't really like to read things that I don't think are good. And so at that point, if I'm not reading it, I don't feel anything, really, if it gets canceled or it continues.
Yeah.
I'm pretty liberal. You're pretty liberal, right? I mean, we're pretty leftist. But I mean, we're from the Midwest. We're both from, we do this show out of Wichita, Kansas. So our idea of leftist is probably not the same as a lot of people.
Well,
right?
But
we're probably
not talking that kind of nonsense at the same time.
Right. So we're pretty, I think we probably, in a lot of ways come out center left of the
Sure.
real leftist people, but I'm not into super SJW stuff either. I don't want anything that's just all preach all the time, regardless of
what side it's preaching to.
I mean, I don't like Transmetropolitan that much for the same fucking reason, because it's very right wing. But I read it and I just think it's like a 17-year-old's notebook, and it went forever. But if it would have been canceled, I wouldn't have cared. And if the fact that it went a long time, I don't care, because I picked it up and I read it and I said, I don't like it. I was done with it, right?
Yeah.
So, fuck it. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Don't ask us that shit.
That's stupid, right? So the next one is from Thomas Edard, which, from your picture, here, let's put it up here real quick. From your picture, you look like a Thomas Edard, and I don't know if that's, here, see?
I can see that.
Yeah, right? So I don't know if that's your real name or not, but you should stick with it. It works for you.
Your real picture?
The picture could be fake, too.
Right, yeah.
You could be just a weirdo. But
catfishing us?
Thomas, we're on to you. So he asked, did you guys read comics as kids? What were some of your favorites? Drew, did you read any comics as a kid?
I got some from a family member one time, a big stack of them, but I just didn't have the patience for it, man. I wanted to go play outside.
Yeah.
I didn't probably enjoy reading things until I was about 16, 17. Could really take time and just relax and, dedicate my attention to written words on a page. When I was 10, I didn't want to read shit.
Sure. Early on in grade school, I did not read comics at all, but I read a crap load of young adult books, a lot of books. I was kind of a crazy bookworm kind of kid.
Yeah.
You know how they do like Pizza Hut Book It?
See, I did the shit out of that, but it was just because I wanted to win.
Right.
Like, that was the only reason.
I think
it worked.
I read like over 100 books in like my first, like I was like in first grade or some shit. And I read like 100 and some fucking books, right? So, and that continued all through grade school. I read a lot of like young adult literature, Hardy Boys and all that kind of like adventure stuff.
Sure.
Right. And then I got into middle school, started playing drums, started, you know, doing that kind of thing. And I didn't really read much of anything for a while. But that was the period where I wasn't really reading anything else, where I did start picking up some comic books. When they were still, I'm 37. So this was like really early 90s. They were still like at Walmart on the end caps, and there was the spinner at Dillon's or Kroger or whatever you call it, where you're from.
The grocery store.
There you go. And I would pick up a lot of, I was like part of the problem with the 90s boom of like buying number ones or things with shiny covers or die cut cutouts, right? I've got like Sabretooth #1 just because it had like this cool thing where it was like his mouth was cut out and he was sitting inside it like on the next page, right? And stuff like that. I had a lot of #1 issues. I was into like baseball cards, right? And so the natural
collector kind of...
The natural next step for that is like, oh, instead of like, I didn't watch baseball. Like nobody I knew watched baseball, but
we
we
all
all
had the cards.
We all had the cards, right?
I guess in my generation that was like Pokemon. Like nobody played the game, but everybody had like the book of the fucking...
Right, you're a good
rares.
like, what, 8 years younger than me or something?
29.
So 8 years younger. So yeah, and it just, that was like the next step was like, whoa, I mean, I'm collecting cards, so why not collect these cool little books with like dudes with teeth and guns and stuff like that.
It's better than baseball.
Right. It was way neater. But I did get into a couple of things. The main one that I really got into was Punisher Warzone, which, looking back on it, is actually a really well-renowned run where he turned into what we really see him as now. Had a lot of stuff about like PTSD, and it actually shaped my idea of what a comic is supposed to be at a pretty young age. Like, you know, I think it was like 92, 93. So it was like, you know, right before teenage years. I was, you know, pretty well like learning what a comic book is, what a cartoon is, what a movie is, right? Like what they really are supposed to represent. And I got super into it, and I have like #1 through like 20 something, like still sitting around somewhere. But it was subversive, it was violent, but it was also pretty heady. Like there was an issue early on that I still remember where all of a sudden he just wakes up and he's in like a nice house and he has to go mow his lawn and he's got his kids, and it was shot like everything was that, what is that angle, the German angle or whatever, where it's like fucking tilted, you know, everything was weird angles and kind of what I would probably call Lynchian now, you know, and I was like, whoa, this is really trippy, you know, like it's all of a sudden a nice normal life seems super creepy, and like he couldn't handle it and he ended up like murdering some people or something, you know. It was really subversive stuff. I think it was like Ellis or Ennis or somebody that wrote it. No idea at the time. So I was super into that, and I was really into the early Image stuff that everybody laughs at now. But, you know, when you're 13 or whatever, Youngbloods is pretty fucking cool. Dudes riding motorcycle guns through space, you know, he's like blasting around on his motorcycle, and then he like pulls it out and lands and starts shooting people with the backside of it, you know. That was pretty fucking, it was pretty neat, you know. You just, so nothing for you though, huh? No?
No.
Well, there you go. Okay, so next we have a question from Reggie Shell, who, and by the way, you can see from the dates on these that it admittedly has been way too long since we said we were going to do this. But Reggie Shell often has pretty interesting comments. I've seen multiple by this guy. He always has something cool to say to our stuff.
Like a good guy.
But he did ask us a question here that I think we may have partially covered at some point. But do you guys like the Young Animal comics? And what future titles would you like Young Animal to make? I thought, hey, I'm pretty into this question, right?
Okay. Yeah, so I think we were pretty on board with the Young Animal stuff that we read for the most part. Gerard Way surprised us both in a great way by having some actual writing chops and being into some weird shit and not just being some strange, obscure celebrity, person that they brought in for no reason, which I was afraid that's what it was at the beginning.
Right,
but then, you learn that the dude, worked with Morrison and stuff. So it's like, okay, we'll give him a shot. As far as things that I would like to see them make, my answer is always going to be the question.
Yeah.
I think always.
Yeah.
Until it happens. It would be cool, if Swamp Thing comes back, I think it would be a better venue for it than, main DC, especially right now.
Sure.
Yeah, probably those two.
Yeah, it's always... Yes, I like the Young Animal stuff too. We don't do a poll show anymore, and both of our polls, got decimated, basically. I don't even poll anything, or is it you just do the trades, right?
Yeah.
So I removed all of my poll, except for... Literally, my poll list says Young Animal. Mm-hmm. And that's what I pull. And it's not because I think it's the best stuff on the shelf. It's because I had a certain budget. We've talked about this before, in our piracy episode, and this is kind of similar. I had a certain budget that I could put towards singles. And I knew that the rest was going to be trades, right?
Right.
And I said, where's my money for singles best spent? I said, well, DC, in my opinion, right now is basically garbage. Mm-hmm. So I should probably put my money at the only things at DC that I like, right? I got to vote with your money, right? My poll list is literally just the Young Animal stuff. Everything else that I read is in trade format. All the Image, anything from Marvel, Dark Horse, Boom, anything else is trade. But Young Animal I pull. I have on my pull list, and Heavy Metal is on my poll, which is silly. I should...
I thought you did subscribe to it.
I should subscribe to it, because it's
you'd save a lot of money.
$2 or something, but I pay my local comic book shop $9 for it. That's stupid. I should change that. But I'm lazy. And
you're supporting the industry, man. Keeping it alive.
Right, by wasting $7 every 2 months.
It's not a waste.
It's really not a big deal. It's a drop in the bucket. But
somebody's Taco Bell on the way home.
That's true. That's true. Paying that nice guy at the shop who's always helpful, an hour of his salary probably. I think it's pretty good. It's not...
What would you like to see them do?
Yeah, I'm with you on the question. Part of the problem here is, if you don't know the pitch... Yeah,
I was just trying to... I think Way would write a really good question.
Right. What are...
and I think he would write a really good Swamp Thing.
Right. So I think the question has to be, what would you like to see them succeed at doing, and doing in a way that you would like to read? Question, Invisibles, I think would be really cool. They could do that.
Detective Comics.
Fuck yeah, man.
Tight.
Oh, man, that'd be killer. Mother Panic is kind of what I wish Detective Comics was, to be honest. It's pretty good.
Okay.
I'm really of the opinion that when it comes to the big two and their characters, it doesn't fucking matter.
If it's good.
That it really has very little impact on whether or not something is worth reading, what the character is. So, I could see them letting Tom, what's the dude's name?
King.
Tom King do a fucking Kyle Rayner series over there, right? Do Kyle Rayner the White Lantern. And make that a crazy, Green Lantern spinoff over there. There's all sorts of cool things you could do. Do a Guy Gardner on Young Animal. That'd be fucking killer. The asshole Green Lantern that nobody likes, and watch him just go around and piss people off and act like a dick. I'd super read that.
Sold. Yeah.
Yeah. Put somebody real fucking mean on it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, we can sit here and throw. Lobo would be cool. There's a lot of things that I think theoretically would be awesome. But again, it comes down to who's going to be writing it. Who's going to be drawing it.
Right.
What their actual concept for the series is.
Animal Man, obviously one of my favorites. I'd love to see another good Animal Man.
Young Animal Man.
All right, so let's put up question number 3 or 4. Question number 4, this is from Bowl of Gravy, folks. And I hope you don't look like that, Bowl of Gravy. Or if you do, I'm sorry. That's mean.
Okay.
Well, look.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So, favorite writer and artist. This is pretty. This is like a softball. Thanks.
Jeff Johns and Rob Liefeld.
Obviously, yeah. Dan Didio.
Yeah.
Right. Old Morrison. I love old Morrison.
I like new Morrison. Shit.
Yeah.
You know?
There's like a middle Morrison, like 90s
Sure.
Morrison. I wasn't super into.
Sure. Somewhere along the stretch of 17 years of Batman that he did, it kind of waned a little bit.
Right.
But
I think he can be pretty strong. I mean, it depends on the context here. Can I say Craig Thompson from like Blankets and Habibi and that kind of stuff?
Sure.
You know, I love that guy, and he does the writing and the art. It's probably my all-time favorite stuff. I really like Travel Foreman for art, especially what he was doing back in the New 52 Animal Man time frame, where he was doing that very loose, weird line work, real scratchy. He recently did something else over at Marvel that the colorist completely destroyed and ruined, but I really like his work. I like Matt Hollingsworth coloring, but who doesn't, right?
Sure. What's the Descender guy? Wynn?
Dustin Wynn.
Dustin Wynn. Yeah, Dustin the Wynn. That's it.
Right.
Remember that.
Right. There's always Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah. As far as artists, we haven't talked about in a while Smallwood. You know.
Yeah.
As far as paneling, especially, like,
definitely.
I can't think of anybody better than him.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, for writers, a lot of my answers are, probably like standard comic hipster.
I agree.
I mean, like, again, Dennis O'Neil Questions probably like one of my favorite series. Alan Moore, Swamp Thing. Neil Gaiman. About like what you would expect from me, I guess. Tom King, everything but Batman, I've thought has been pretty legit.
Scotty Young, we both have a lot of liking for Scotty Young work,
Yeah.
which I think is maybe a little bit off kilter from most of the things you might expect.
Lemire's real hit or miss. Some of his shit I love.
Yeah.
And some of it I just don't care at all.
Yeah, that's the way I am with most writers. It's a hard question for me to answer just because of that, Yeah. I like some works and I don't like other works. Can I say Kurt Vonnegut? Like
Yeah.
like when it comes to comic books, part of the thing is that a lot of times writers for comics, they're sort of writing to somebody else's ideas. So sometimes it works great, and sometimes, and even like the artists they're working with, Brubaker, by the way, we should mention Brubaker and Phillips. Yeah. You put people together and they work really great, and then you put two different people that you love together, and it's like, oh, what is this? Like, it just didn't work out,
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to the next question. This is Sergey Kardashev. What are the worst tropes in cape and non-cape comics? Between two books, which one would you keep reading? Top-notch art and bad writing, or hideous art and good writing? So let's start off with the first part of that question. What are the worst tropes in cape and non-cape comics? Yeah, I don't know. Cape comics are sort of a trope.
Yeah.
In and of themselves. Probably number one is the refrigerated girlfriend. And this happens. I think it happens not just with women. I think a lot of people complain about the fridging in comics. Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. You take the female character, the love interest, gets jammed in the fridge and dies, and the only reason it happened, or the only reason she exists, is to move the character forward. So it's like disposable women, basically. But I think it's a trope that happens not just with women. I think people see it when it happens with the girlfriend, and they're like, oh, it's fucking, it's more masculine toxicity, which there is some, but you see it happen with every thing in comics. It's their friend, it's their mom, it's the uncle
Ben,
right? There's somebody always gets fucking fridged in everything. It's his parents, right? And they're just one-dimensional characters that just go through garbage to like make the main character better. And it gets old. I would love to see more characters that in capes at least become who they are just for different reasons than just blunt trauma, you know?
Yeah, Daredevil comes to my mind as just somebody that, I mean, he had like the hearing, and just based on that, like all the shit he heard kind of like formed him into this person. So like it can be done, like
Right, but what's funny is Daredevil then later on
does the
is
same
just
shit.
like, and he's surrounded by refrigerators full of dead people, but it's not, I don't think it's really particularly fridging either, because in most of that stuff they're pretty well-rounded characters, and you actually are like, fuck, that character
Right.
died.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it's impactful on its own, not just a way to be showing the character being impacted. But
As far as non-K books, though, I'm not sure.
yeah, it gets pretty broad once you talk about non-Cape books.
I mean, there are a lot of tropes, like in stories in general, that I think comics kind of fall into.
Right.
You know, like everything has to have a love story, for example, and you know there's just a lot of shit. You know?
Yeah, well, I hate to say it because we just recently talked about Mouse, but it has an example of a trope that you see in a lot of non-Cape books, which is the character writing themselves in, writing the comic, right? So they're writing the story that's being read. I think I see that so much that I'm like, really? You know?
Yeah.
Happens.
Seems kind of cheap now.
Especially in anything that is trying to like a lot of things try to hang the lampshade on it, you know, to like gain some legitimacy, you know, just to like say, look, okay, I'm a guy, I'm writing a comic book, you get it.
Sure.
Here I am doing it, right? You get it in March a little bit too, like he talks about the fact that he's making it, et cetera, you know. The second half of that was which would you rather do, good art and bad writing, or good writing and bad art? If you had to read one.
Rather do writing and no art. I mean, it's just a regular
That's
book.
just a
and
book,
it's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some examples. Ringside's a good example of something we really liked. They
It's
had
terrible art.
fantastic writing and absolutely garbage art. But I don't know, like Copra had a pretty neat story and like crayon art, and I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, art can really ruin, especially when you get to like layout and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people don't think about enough. And I mean, layout can ruin things for me a lot more than like necessarily shitty art can, you know, like, because when you're like trying to understand something, like it pulls you out of the story. Like as long as the art's there and it serves the story well, like, I mean, it's nice if it's nice.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I can say I could probably get down with something that was like really incredible art, just for the
Scarlet
enjoyment.
Witch, we were gonna do that.
That's a good example.
And then the art just tanked in like the
Right.
third issue, so we were like, we have no reason to read this anymore.
Right, we were reading it. We were still on it because the art was so good. So either is viable. You know, there's always good reasons to read anything where one of the people involved is doing something amazing.
Sure.
All right, we're a little over halfway through here.
Sure,
Let's
gotta hurry up.
let's do Gudapin Wargaming. He asks, in your opinion, what is the greatest page in any comic you've read in terms of artistic beauty, impact, and powerful storytelling? There's some more, but we'll start with that real quick. I don't really have one.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in Saga of the Swamp Thing.
Yeah, me too, probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe for single panel Animal Man when he looks out at you and says, I can see you.
Yeah, especially at the time.
Right. Or even just when I read it, I was like, whoa, that's fucked up, right? Like I didn't expect it. But, you know, that's a hard question, man. I don't really have one.
It's pretty hard. I mean, I can point to like single favorite issues, you know, but as far as like a page, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Next question that he had was, have you ever turned a page and been blown away by the artwork, plot, twist, and or big reveal? Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's
You know?
one of the great things about reading comics. Invincible comes to mind immediately for plot twist. Like, that really blew my mind. Anybody who's read it knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, that
Vision
happens.
did that a lot.
Yeah, that happens a lot, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I read. What's your favorite piece of dialogue? I have no idea. Probably Swamp Thing again, or maybe
that'd be a good one.
Maybe something from Sandman.
One of the ones that stands out that I don't think it's talked about enough is it was in the teens, and it was a Brubaker Catwoman issue, and it was just her and Slam like working out like relationship problems, and that whole thing was basically, you know, narrative and dialogue, and that issue I think was like one of the strongest ones I've ever read. So
agreed. Yeah, that's a super hard question, man. There's all sorts of great stuff. Which is the most compelling relationship between two characters, be they friends, enemies, lovers, etc.?
Context.
No idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, who is the most badass comic book character and why?
By what criteria?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking like fighting skill?
Yeah. Maybe.
Midnighter?
It's got to be Midnighter because that was going to be my answer too.
Okay.
Midnighter is probably in terms of just super badass. Him or Phantom X from X-Men maybe. And why? Just because you didn't give us criteria, so we made up our own. That's why. So next question. This is question number 7 from just K.
Okay.
What are your favorite Image comics, and have you read any Hellboy? And if you did, what do you think of Hellboy? For our favorite Image comics, probably just look on our page for Image. We have a playlist for Image. That's easier than trying to say.
Sure. The one that stands out right now would be Fade Out.
Yeah, some Brubaker stuff probably.
But yeah, that's ignoring a lot of other stuff that really needs mention. So I don't know. Fade Out's just on my mind for some reason.
I'm with you. Yeah. And then Hellboy, honestly, man,
Never read it.
I've never read it. I want to read it. There's just I don't know
what to read.
What yet? I just haven't really dug into it, figured out, and it seems like something that deserves paying attention to where you should start.
Sure.
A lot of things you can just pick up and read whatever, but it seems like one of those epic tomes where you should give it what it deserves, and I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, there's also like it seems to be like a bunch of like rare esoteric shit, kind of like The Tick, where it's just like it's all over the place, and so you really want to make sure you get good shit, but then a lot of times it's hard to find the good shit.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll read some Hellboy soon. Question number 8 is asking about Black Mask comics. This is Findy Sacri.
Okay.
What do you think of Black Mask? Would love if we would review them.
I think we have the one, didn't we? Didn't we do the one?
Yeah, we did something from Black Mask and we liked it, and we said we should read more, but we just haven't gotten to it yet.
Was it that the Tuskegee Airmen one?
No, I think that was something with an A.
Okay.
That was Aftershock.
Aftershock, yeah, that was it.
But no, there's cool stuff on Black Mask that looks really neat that I would like to read, but we just have to pick and choose because we do this show, so we try to mix it up, and we just haven't gotten to them yet. Yeah. Give us suggestions what we should start with, please.
Oh, on the Hellboy too.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah. If anybody can tell us what to read there, that'd be great. European comics is what this one is asking about. This is Pablo Hidalgo.
Okay.
What's your favorite European comic? I don't know, man.
Morrison's from Scotland.
Yeah, does he count?
Does he count? Yeah,
I don't know. There's, we didn't read any of these ahead of time. These questions, or else I could have told you what some of my favorite European comics are. There are some dudes out there that do some really cool stuff that I've checked out. There's a real trippy dude from the late 70s whose name I can't think of that I've read a couple volumes of his stuff that I really love.
I think Morrison's English as well, or not Morrison.
Moore.
Yeah, Moore's English, and I want to see, where's Gaiman from?
I don't know, but that question is also, I think he's talking about like European published comics.
Yeah, okay.
AD and all that stuff. So, man, I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to where the stuff comes from.
Ignorant ass American. Sorry.
Yeah. Suggestions again. And our last question from Tiger Timpre. We've gotten questions from him in the past and statements and comments, and I usually like what he has to say. It says, what are your most favorite comics of all time and favorite ongoing comics? So we should probably definitely answer that. For me, I'd have to say Sandman, Blankets, Invincible, Ultimate Spider-Man, Powers. Those are kind of maybe top 5-ish if I just have to, shotgun them out there. Animal Man, the original Morrison Animal Man. Swamp Saga of the Swamp Thing.
Question I got to throw in there again.
The Fade Out might actually be probably up there in my top 10.
Mm-hmm. As well as Criminal, I think might be there too. Like the whole epic saga. I mean, there's like one story arc that I didn't really get down on, but everything else was fantastic. I think Vision may be up there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there you go. There's a basic idea of it. How do you feel about graphic novels versus comics, episodic? I guess you mean like preferences, maybe?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends on the story.
Yeah.
I think, each one can serve a different sort of story way more appropriately than the other one can. I would say generally I'm more attracted to the trade form and stories that fit well within that. But that's not a hard, fast rule.
And I also don't know if you're asking if you're using the generic graphic novel or if you mean things like Blankets and Mouse that were originally written with the intention of being a graphic novel versus comics that are compacted in. I say generally speaking, I prefer the larger format. It's quicker or easier to read. It's all together. It's cheaper.
Takes about 6 months less time.
It's what we read now, as you can see from our format change. So that's kind of the answer to that. And the last question, how do comics compare strengths and weaknesses to other storytelling mediums? This has already been a long video, but we'll try to give a quick answer to that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the last print mediums that I think's actually succeeding to some degree, which is great. I think the idea of it really being able to go on as long as it wants to or needs to is great. The fact that you can have story arcs that are literally 30 issues long, and they do have smaller stories, which is another point, the ability to tell short and long-term stories over such a long period of time. As compared to TV, you don't have to deal with actors or budgets
is a big one in my mind.
Yeah, just constraints from content, people, and all that. It's really free, or not free monetarily free, but free you can kind of do whatever the hell you want.
Right. It lacks the constraints in the way that literature does, which is cool. You can have shitty pop literature and you can have really intense, esoteric, hard to read literature and everything in between.
Sure.
You can have crazy, wild adventures. You can have very contained plots and simple things. It has all that, but it also has visual appeal of a visual medium and an art form. So I think in a lot of ways you get the best of both worlds, where you get to tell visual stories and give visual concepts and just visual art. Being somebody who likes art, I love that you get to see somebody's artistic representation of a story.
Not to mention a lot of times with Big Two stuff, people's interpretation of the same shit.
Yeah,
how often do you get that? And that extends to the writers and stuff as well. You really get so many people's take on this idea of this character and who they are and stuff like that. And yeah, it's something you don't really get anywhere else.
Right. And that loose continuity is very cool.
Yeah.
Right. The way that it's sort of like a TV show that goes on forever, but it's kind of like if they rebooted the TV show every couple years.
Yeah, and
but
different channel picked it up. And
there was new actors and a new showrunner, but they kind of kept what they liked from the old show and redid what they didn't. And then it happens again and it happens again. So I think it's unique in that way.
Definitely.
I think that had one last little bit, but I think it was pretty much answered there. Yeah.
Cool.
So there you go.
Right.
If you have any other questions or comments, add them down there and we'll do another one eventually.
Thanks for asking us things.
Yeah.
Recommend us things. Later.